Heading into the back half of July, we're back on the KrakCast News. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Here with Josh and Dr. Mike as usual, and our favorite, sometimes special,
very special,
3 out of 10 special guest. Gabby is back this week. Welcome back, Gabby.
Hello.
Last time you were here, we had our Hungarian lesson, right?
Yes, we did. That was fun.
We discovered, and by the way, if you're listening and you haven't checked out our Hungarian language lesson, please do yourself a favor and go back and check it out.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Hungarian.
Remember her name?
Hungarian is so filthy.
No, Amy.
Hungarian is such a filthy language. We needed 2 people here to help us through the discussion. And I have to say, Gabby, Josh and Mike and I are still talking about how when we got to the dirty words of Hungarian, it seemed like a different Gabby showed up here. A different Gabby kind of like enthusiastically took the microphone and said, listen to me, because I'm going to tell you the dirtiest words I can think of in Hungarian.
Yes. My mother was listening as well. She loved it.
You're quite proud of that, are you? Okay.
I am, yeah.
You did very well.
I am. I was channeling my inner peasant.
Gabby's secret Hungarian identity. And by the way, is Gabby like a Hungarian name as well?
Yes, it's the name of my grandmother.
Ah, what is it short for Gabriella?
Yes.
Okay.
2 L's, not 1.
Fair enough. Well, let's get into the news this week. There's no delicate, sensitive, understanding, respectful way to introduce this topic, so I'm just going to bull my way into it. In previous years in the summertime, Josh and Dr. Mike, you will recall that the subject of Poles drowning in rivers, in lakes, in the ocean, in puddles, in sinks, in whatever. This is just something we talk about. It's a thing. Poles have this thing with drowning. Again, I know it shouldn't be making fun of it. It's a serious topic, but we've seen it enough where it strikes us as weird. But this year, maybe because it hasn't been quite so hot as previous years, at least so far.
Are you serious?
Well, no, it hasn't been quite so hot this year.
You think it was boiling this year.
We had a week.
No, John,
we had a couple of days.
Are you some kind of a denier? Are you saying that it's not getting... We're nearly at boiling point.
No, come on, Gavin. It's been a couple of days of proper summertime.
The last 2 weeks has been like a relief, but it's been it's been very dry. There's no mosquitoes for a reason. There's been no rain. It's been very hot.
But
rain? What the
has it? Where have you been? About? Which city have you been living in the last month or so? Because here in this city,
rain.
It's been like 22 degrees, 21 degrees,
for the past,
cloudy,
for the
breezy.
past week or so. For the past week and a half.
Except the fact that you're wrong, so we can move on.
Which came on the back of a 5-day spell.
Never.
It came on the back of a 5-day spell of temperatures topping 30 degrees. 5 days. Oh, that's like an extended heat wave. No, it's
Let
not.
me take over here because Gabby derailed my conversation, my point here.
I'm so sorry.
I wish I had a mute button for you because I'd hit it right now.
It doesn't exist.
Anyway,
sorry.
the point is
I've got one over here.
Going back to drowning, Dr. Mike and Josh will back me up on this, that every year it's a ritual. It's part of the news cycle. In December we talk about Christmas. In the summertime we talk about Poles drowning. It's just the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
But this year, not so much. However, the news cycle this year, at least locally here in Krakow, has been full of another kind of similar story that involves Poles and swimming and recreation in the water. Places where they shouldn't go swimming, but they absolutely insist on doing it. That's the theme that we see this year. We see it in a number of places in Krakow. We've talked about Zakzrowek a couple of times already this summer, the big former rock quarry on the south side of town.
My favourite place to swim.
You like that? Yeah?
Love it.
Have you been there recently?
No, because I moved. I moved, right. And also it's closed off. I hear it's closed off because
it's always been closed off.
But it was a wonderful place. Yeah. If you like swimming, if you're a good swimmer, it was a wonderful.
Well, we've spoken about how the city,
wonderful.
The city's tried to make something of it. They've tried to formally organize what has always been an informal.
They tried to make something that was totally uninclusive. And we're going
to let me get back to Zakzrowek in a minute because we have an update on the project there. But already this year, I think 3 people have died. Another 2 or 3 have been seriously injured, falling off the edge, jumping off the edge into the shallow water and whatnot.
Tombstoning, it's called.
This week, we learned that the city is trying to crack down on another 2 places in different parts of the city where people jump in the water where they're not supposed to go. One of them is in Park Lutnikov, which is kind of my part of town. On the east side of town, off Jana Pawła and Mogilska, there are a couple of fountains there and a couple of minor, I guess it's a stretch to call them a pond, but it's a small body of water. You're not supposed to get in for various health reasons, but you cannot stop. Dr. Mike, we talked about this. You simply cannot stop Poles from going into water, even though, there are huge signs that say don't do it. There are locks and gates and fences and warnings. And have you got a theory? Let me channel your inner psychologist here. What's going on with Poles where they simply cannot follow rules, like rules that are supposed to protect them when it comes to swimming places?
I think they're like lemmings in that way. It's like you put that in front of them and they just kind of shuffle along towards that unless you physically stop them and turn them away.
By the way, Mike can say this because he's Polish, so it's okay.
It's my people, I guess, or whatever. No, it is true. Something about Poles and bodies of water. They really don't know how to handle it. I was raised in Australia, so, I was always on the beach and, but in school, I was taught how to swim from an early age. It was part of the culture. But here, they don't teach you how to swim.
Let me mention, Gabby, I know you want to jump in here. Let me mention one more place. I mentioned Park Lotnikov. We mentioned Zakzrowek, and there's another place. Informally, people here call it the Maldives. Formally, I'm not sure it has a name. We're talking about a place just finished last year. Actually, it's actually quite nice. It's behind Toron Arena, kind of across the street from Imyedin, hidden behind the trees on Aleja Pokoju, behind Toron Arena. Really nice. They made, how to describe it? A few different small islands, small ponds, very nice walkways that take you around here and there. And they noticed that people, especially kids, are jumping into the water. The water is 80 centimeters deep. And the kids are jumping head first.
Oh.
And, come on, people. And, their parents or some kind of guardian adult is, right there, not doing anything, not saying anything. Just a matter of time before somebody gets hurt. And so we've got 3 places in the city, Park Lotnikov, the Maldives, whatever it's called, and Zakzrowek.
And there's one more I'd like to add to that list.
Okay.
Park Jordanov.
So suicide.
I mean,
there
they're not suiciding, but there are signs that you're not supposed to swim there. And like I went, I think 2.5 weeks ago when it was really, really hot. It was full of, when the rugby was on. That's when I went. When the rugby was on, we walked through, and it was full of kids swimming around, and a duck and its family.
Are we talking about the pool that has like those little self-propelled duck boat things?
No, I'm talking about the one with the fountain. So there's a fountain bit, and then around that fountain, there's
the new
like
one. This is new, right?
Yeah, and then there's like an amphitheater almost around it as well. Where
so
you
what
can
are you
sit.
if you're supposed to look at it? And
You're supposed to appreciate it and look at it and sit there, but not get in there, especially not on a hot day. Okay. It's not very deep. I think it's like 50 centimeters max.
And somebody's diving headfirst into it right now as we speak. I'm sure. So, anyone else have? Dr. Mike says it's the lemming feature of.
I don't think it's lemming.
I think it's the rule breaking.
I think number one, it's the rule breaking, and number two, showers. Most Poles don't have bathrooms. Baths in their bathroom. They have showers, and when you want to go when it's a hot day, sometimes you just want to soak. Hungary has a big.
Right, let me stop you right there. Yeah. Are you suggesting the Polish people are taking a bath in public because they can't take a bath at home?
No. Yes. But also, it's to do with the coolness of the water. When you're hot, you want to cool down. And you don't get the same satisfaction from a cold shower.
Are you telling me that people say, you know what, I'm dirty, I'm sweaty, I'm uncomfortable,
no, it's nothing
I'll be back, I'm going to go down to the park and take a bath?
With washing.
What are you talking
about? It's nothing to do with washing. It's to do with cooling down on a hot day. When you're hot, you want to cool down, you get in the cold water. I'm going to bring Hungary into it because Hungary has a serious swimming culture and water culture.
Yes, they do.
They do. There are loads of outdoor pools. Nearly every town has at least 2 outdoor pools where people can go and swim. In Krakow, I believe, we had an argument about this before the recording. In Krakow, I believe there's
a discussion.
Yes, a discussion. I believe there's one in Krakow, and
you
say there's one more in Nowa Huta, which arguably is Krakow, but arguably it's also Nowa Huta. But there's one open-air swimming pool for the whole city of 800,000 people. Of course, people are going to find a body of cold water to jump into in a cold day.
800,000 people includes Nowa Huta.
Yes, yeah, okay.
So
two. Okay. Well, let's say there's each outdoor swimming pool 400,000 people. Like, we need more open air swimming pools, guys.
But
if you want to stop people jumping in cold water on a hot day, build more open air swimming pools, problem solved.
But if we're casting our net that wide, then I would, also consider not swimming pools, but then you have Crispinov, you have Bagre, you have that place out in Nova Huta as well, where people swim that is maintained and.
Zalew Nova Hutskia?
Yeah, exactly.
True. You're not supposed to get in there either, but people do.
No, you're not allowed in there.
Okay.
But also, these places are quite far away. Like, Crispinov is a bit long, isn't it? You've got to go on a bus, it's far.
For a lot of people.
Bagre's convenient and it's busy.
Is convenient for everybody in Nova Huta.
Zakzrowek's very convenient.
Zakzrowek is very convenient, yeah.
Just a quick update on Zakzrowek, Dr. Mike. We learned this week that the city formally admitted to something that we all suspected for a long time, that in fact they will not give official permission for Zakzrowek to open this year. They're going to completely miss, the remainder of the city. Let's say we have a good 6 weeks left of summertime. A lot of people are disappointed. A lot of people are going to go anyway. I'm sure a lot of people are still going to go.
Right now, yeah.
They're going to go right past the big fence, right past the big sign.
I'm going to go there before they stop you swimming in the cool, crisp water.
Tell us, among other things, the city gave a few reasons for why they did not want to open this year. Tell us why Zakzrowek has to wait until next year to formally open.
Apparently, the building infrastructure there that has, the bathrooms, changing rooms, isn't going to be ready. It's not going to have power hooked up to it. They're not going to have power and the facilities needed there for disabled access. And one of the hilarious things is one of the pools there is designed to be a children's wading pools, which the law says has a maximum depth of 40 centimeters. That pool there is 41 centimeters deep.
Okay, hold on, Mike, because, I've been thinking about this one since we were looking at the program notes. And it seems to me that the way to reduce the depth from 41 centimetres to 40 centimetres is to put less water in it.
It doesn't work like that because it's a floating pool. So it's using the natural level of the lake. So the depth is from the top of the platform to the bottom of the plastic, and that floats on the water. So the plastic...
Well, so it's even easier to fix then.
They just need to pull up the plastic 1 centimetre.
Take it in a bit,
Apparently that's what they're going to do. They're going to put some actually more thicker material at the bottom of it, so it's 1 centimetre up higher. Yeah. But I'm wondering, how do they measure this? Because this almost feels like something that... It depends on, are you measuring from the base or from the, beginning, or where? It's
from the tip.
Exactly. It seems like one of those things.
Okay. This reminds me.
To me, honestly, it just smells like bullshit to me. I reckon. Do you know what the real problem is? This is what I'm hearing through the grapevines. The pools, through my contacts, the pools are algae-ridden pools, because who'd have thought that when you stop circulation in a plastic pool with strong sunlight, algae's going to grow in it?
So you put copper sulfate in, which is what people put in swimming pools to keep algae away.
Yeah, they might do, but this is a lake. You can't put copper sulfate.
Yeah, but it's not a natural lake, is it? It's not fed by a river. It's not
the water table.
It's just
the water table that's come up. So it's a natural lake in the way
it was artificially filled when the quarry closed. When the quarry closed, there was no water in there.
But okay,
so this
happens in Hungary very frequently as well. When you have a quarry, often you're pumping water out, because once you hit the water table, water starts coming up slowly, right?
Well, okay, that's
when you abandon it for years, the water comes up through the ground, and then it will eventually become level with the water table of the area.
It's like an open well, basically.
It's an open well, exactly. It's an open well, and so. Yeah, you can't just dump copper sulfate into a lake.
Why not?
Well, I guess you'd have to ask the Krakow authorities, but I'm sure there's laws against that kind of thing.
But you're not dumping it into the whole of the lake. You're dumping it into this kind of semi-enclosed area, which is...
it's semi-enclosed, but also there's holes in it. So it's not totally kind of cut off from the water.
Right.
Because one of the reasons the water there was always considered relatively clean is because, it was a limestone quarry. And limestone has a tendency to filter out and, neutralize water to a high degree. There was always problems with Zakzrowek because it wasn't monitored like other bodies of water for, infections, E. coli and stuff like that. But it was generally considered actually quite clean.
And the water's crystal clear there as well.
I mean, let me summarize, because I want to move on, but there's 2 points I want to make.
Please.
So the summary is this.
My favourite topic.
The summary is this. Poles absolutely cannot will not, I should say, follow any rules when it comes to don't swim here, don't jump in this water. They just won't. They
I think that's humans generally.
not.
Actually, I think that's humans. Not just
And in the case of Zakzrowek, which was meant to be a kind of a showpiece step forward for the city, it was supposed to be something to be proud of. They've completely fucked it up schedule wise. Nobody's surprised. Come on, how long have they been working on this? And they just. They did
have another option, because where the diving school was, because I've been there, there's a few places where you can naturally get into the water where it's quite shallow. Yeah. Where the diving school was, it's like a swimming pool. You get in, it's about up to your knee, and then you walk out. It gets deep quickly, but you walk out and then it's up to your neck. Well, they could have made that the children's area. They could have cordoned it off and made that the children's area. They could have had another bit for the professional swimmers, and they could have stopped people tombstoning by building fences.
We're going to make a prediction. When it does open next year, hopefully, maybe it opens next year, it's going to be an organizational disaster for a while. There's going to be a lot of kinks to work out. Even though they have plenty of time to work it out now, there's going to be too many. There's going to be 3 times more people than there should be there on a nice day, and it's going to be a nightmare.
And the other thing is that you can't actually, the bit where the floating pools are, you're not going to be allowed to swim in the lake itself.
Yeah.
You have to swim in the pools.
So,
which was the whole point of that.
Also, I want to point out quickly, we mentioned Bagre. I was there a couple of weeks ago. The guys will understand. I made a huge mistake, did not take my sunglasses with me.
Okay. Yeah. Right. You got like your eyes.
Yeah. Go to Bagre, but guys, take your sunglasses with you. Just trust me on that one. And I wanted to go back to Gabby for one thing. Kind of a sidebar. I'm curious because we mentioned your Hungarian credentials. You can curse like a sailor in Hungarian. Yeah. You mentioned something earlier. It's really true, actually. Hungary, a landlocked country, is a swimming powerhouse.
Yes.
When it comes to the Olympics, it's bizarre.
It's because 80%.
Why is that? Poland is not. Hungary is. Why not?
It's because under 80% of Hungary, there are naturally occurring thermal bars. The water table is very low or high. I can't remember, but it's pretty close to the surface. Hi. So as soon as you dig a hole, you get a lake.
Okay, so it's a cultural thing born from the geography.
Born from the geography, and there's a lot of volcanic rock there.
Water polo monster, along with Serbia and Hungary, and the Russians, you just kind of fight over. The Americans, maybe not so much, but there's a handful of countries, and Hungary's definitely among them.
Hungarians are born swimming, man. I have a friend who was in school in England with me. She's also like half Hungarian mother like me. She moved back to Hungary, and then she moved back to England. But she takes her kids to Hungary, and her baby. I mean, he's 13 now, but her baby was swimming. Was swimming at 2 years old. 2 years old.
Okay, so it's something they permit. It's a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing, and they would jump in off the because they build like platforms into the bottom.
I don't want to get too far off on this tangent, but we've talked about it on our show before about how when it comes to the sports culture, Poland there's something missing here, and Hungary for having 10 million people has a pretty big footprint when it comes to the world of sports, far out of proportion to their numbers, I think, and particularly in the swimming sports, they're, competitive at the highest level. Outside of America and Australia, they dominate the pool, really. Yeah. It's Hungary is right up there with them.
Going back to Poland, if the government and the town are serious about stopping people drowning, just teach people to swim in an early age. That's all you have to do.
Well, there are efforts. There are kids, I know my kids, they have swimming lessons.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're enough. I don't know how good the lessons are, how well organized they are. I asked my daughter, "What did you do?" Swimming. Okay,
I've been to. The first thing you need to do is start building pools, because I've been to a few pools in and around Krakow. There's a good one in Korona, and that's probably about the only good pool. The rest are small. You can swim across it. There's no depth to it.
The universities also have a few swimming pools that are open as well to the public.
But it's just you have to put a lot more effort into finding.
And it's expensive as well. It's so expensive. The pools, ridiculous. They need if you want to solve the problem.
Let's move on from swimming, please. Let's talk about something else.
18 minutes of endless.
Let's go to this week. We learned that the city of Krakow officially, formally renamed the small square outside of the Russian consulate, just off of Krowoderska Street. It's now called. The Platz Free Ukraine. What's the Polish? The Volny
Ukraine.
And it's a symbolic thing, and this forces the Russian consulate to get a new address that says, Free Ukraine. Essentially, it's a fuck you to Russia. I think the similar things have taken place in other countries and cities.
Quite amusingly, I have a friend who lives on Biskupia, which is what it was previously
old
known
name,
as. And he's currently on holiday. And I just messaged him a couple of days ago to say, like, congratulations, you're now living in free Ukraine. And he's like, what? And I said, check the news.
What do we think? A nice little finger in the eye of Russia, or tokenism, symbolic nothingness?
Well, the fact that Poland actually has been supporting Ukraine a lot of financially, militarily, and, with refugees, I think this is a bit more of an FU than just a token, because Poland has done more already before doing the token. This is just a little bit like a cherry on top, I think. And, anything that annoys the Russians, I think is fine by me.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the same thing that I said when they changed the name of the square outside Peace to Women's Rights Square. It's the same thing, isn't it? Essentially, it's the
Basically,
same thing.
same principle.
It's kind of tokenism, but a great troll.
Trolling?
Yeah, it's just trolling, man.
I'm going to come out against it. Platz Biskupi has been the name for as long as...
What did the church think about this? I mean, that was their bishop's place, wasn't it?
It's been there forever, basically. It's been a part of Krakow for hundreds of years.
But from what I understand, it's not the whole square that's changed.
Actually, that's true. It's just one end of it. Because actually, for a square, it's pretty fucking rectangular.
Yeah, it's very long and thin. If we're going to go down this road, let's start with the Chinese and the Saudi Arabian embassy and North Korea. Why don't we just go down the list and say...
I'm all for that. They all need to be trolled.
Poles don't
labor
mind them as
avenue.
much as they mind the Russians, to be honest.
So I think it's fashionable and it's trendy and
it's lol, LOL.
Exactly, it's an internet culture thing. I think it's kind of childish.
I mean, but there's one thing about this, just in contrast to what you're saying about the women's rights square. In both cases, we're talking about a political issue, but here there's definitely more uniformity in society in Poland about that issue. You're not going to, when it comes to the women's rights issue, it's like 50-50 along those lines, people arguing. But when it comes to free Ukraine, you can get most people behind that. And there's going to be very few people that are going to be against it if, they might be against it only for logistical reasons, not actually for political reasons or social reasons.
Sure, but we're living in Krakow, and you're taking the
Warsaw has already done
Krakowian,
something like this for the Russian embassy? Have they already renamed a street?
I don't know, where is the Russian embassy in Warsaw?
Has to be in Warsaw. Right?
But where is it?
No, they did something like really early on in the after the special military operation started.
Okay. Well,
including shining blue and yellow lights onto the Russian embassy building, which was an excellent troll.
They order Uber food, it's always Ukrainians delivering it to them. Are they spinning this or not?
Well, they speak the same language.
You guys ever been to the Russian consulate over there?
No.
Reason to?
Well, I've been outside it, not in it.
In it.
I went there for reasons that I can't remember. I had to go check the...
for that I can't divulge.
No. I think I was helping a friend. And the reason that sounds terrible. But
he was wearing a red rose in his buttonhole and carrying a folded copy of the London Times.
The hours it was open to the public, and it was like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 10:30 or something. It's not even 5 or 6 hours a week open to the public. The rest of the time they do whatever they do. I mean,
consulates, the thing is, they sometimes need a consulate in a given area, but there's not enough going on that it's open all the time. So it's one of those.
Well, they've got to have somewhere for the resident.
Let's move on to kind of the same topic, but a different angle. We learned this week that The Guardian, Gabby's favorite newspaper from the UK, The Guardian published a piece this week.
That rag.
The Guardian. Stop pretending. It's not. The Guardian published a piece this week recommending Krakow as a vacation destination.
Of course they did.
For, among other reasons, it's a great place and you'll love it, blah, blah, blah. But also they said you should go to Krakow. This is a recommendation for their British audience, I assume. But they also recommended Krakow as a vacation destination because they say by doing so, by taking your holiday in Krakow, you're also helping the Ukraine. Josh, what do you make of this?
Well, you're wrong, actually, John.
Thanks.
Because the article wasn't about Krakow. It was about Poland. Take a holiday in Poland. I mean, inevitably, of course, like all the photographs were lovely pictures of Krakow. And there was a token shot of the waterfront in Gdańsk. And, it did all kind of like,
places,
threw in a few mentions of sort of like, Warsaw's really groovy and blah, 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 blah. But, did we mention Krakow? Oh, yes. Well, we better mention it again because that's basically where you go. But, I mean, it's also been their top, weekend break destination for the last 10
times
years,
already before. But how?
And it's weird, isn't it? Because whenever you go out in the main square, the place is full of pissed up, jeering, yelling, swearing, lager throwing Guardian readers, presumably.
How are vacationing Brits helping the Ukraine by holidaying in Poland exactly?
They're not, but they're feeling better about themselves.
According to the article, you're helping out the hotel owners who give their rooms to Ukrainians, so you're giving them money for.
So there's
like the
6 degrees of separation between your goodwill and
there's like a tenuous link between what people have
this
been
is the
doing.
Guardian. This is the Guardian espousing trickle down economics. I think
Exactly. There's a reason I don't like that rag, and that is one of them.
Well, they don't have any clue about economics, which is why you know.
Players, if they want more English people to come here, just to tell them lots of
Tell them the beer's cheap.
that, and there's a lot of Ukrainian girls here. Very, very many of them soon to be single. So
Wait
yeah.
a second. What did you? How?
Ouch.
We need a penalty box or something. Sometimes.
You know, do you have like a piggy bank?
A couple of things. Yeah, Josh, this is whether it's the Guardian or some other British paper. I mean, it seems like every 6 months there's this, secret weekend getaways. Go to Krakow. Nobody goes there. They've been publishing this goddamn story since 1999.
To be fair,
Every
actually,
so many months. Come on.
In 2015, they kind of around springtime they decided that Ljubljana in Slovenia was
They
actually
spin a wheel and it comes up on different cities.
And,
every 6 months.
well, I say this because
I've been there.
actually that year we were planning to take a trip to Italy, and as a consequence of this recommendation and the glorious, gorgeous colour photographs accompanying the article, we decided to include Ljubljana in our travel itinerary from Krakow to Tuscany.
It's nice there. It's very small, but it's nice. Good,
Yes,
good
it
day
is.
stop.
It's very, very nice.
You arrive in
indeed.
the morning, by dinner time you're good to go. I think.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
No, we stayed a night there, so we were a day and a half, and it was cool.
Let me go back to what Mike said when he was being nice.
Full of Guardian readers.
About the kind of the tokenism of it all. Pearl Jam was here in town a few days ago
3
at the
years
Krakow
late.
Arena. And Mike and I, you and I have this. We disagree about Pearl Jam. I think you're quite a fan. I think they've been coasting for 30 years on the success of one album. But
I agree with
let's
John.
leave that to the side.
4 albums worth of good songs.
So you say. Anyway, so apparently during the show they stopped it and they gave some kind of award or recognition to a handful of people who were active in the local charities and whatnot, helping Ukrainians. And it seems to me that there is and I've seen other bits and pieces like this in the British media and the American media. There's a glow attached to the topic of helping the Ukraine. There's a tokenish-y, I made that word up, tokenish-y element to this. Gabby,
It's because
are you all sympathetic with what I'm saying?
it's because the Brits have been useless at helping out refugees. That's why. I mean, they're sending stuff.
What are you talking about? The Brits threw their doors open to... How many refugees do you have to save before...
Honestly,
you can't criticize your own country for not being...
And millions and
really
millions of Ukrainians are going like, no, I don't want to go to Poland, which is our neighbour, and we speak a similar language and we have a similar culture. No, we really, really want to go to Britain, which is 2,000 kilometres away. And
I know someone that wanted to go to Britain
why did they want to go to Britain?
because their boyfriend is British as well.
Well, okay, well that's
there was like a long process of queuing up and rejections here, there, and everywhere. When most of Europe were just like, yeah, come. And it's not just about Britain. Spain did it. Italy did it. They all did it. It's just most people
confident in the knowledge that the
Bring
numbers
everybody
would
back.
be minuscule.
We're getting deep into the weeds here. The point was that airhead celebrity types, Pearl Jam, airhead celebrity types, so they want to be associated with a good cause, and they say something about they wear a Ukraine pin, whatever. They have good intentions, but I don't think they have the first goddamn idea what they're
They have
talking
all
about.
the flags in their Twitter handle.
They do,
But did sod all apart from that.
No, I mean, I love Pearl Jam musically speaking, but I'm so pissed off about their politics and social issues. It just gets tiring after 20 years.
That's part of who they are. 30 years, coasting for 30 years, 1992.
No, but the thing is, when I was a kid, it didn't really hit me that much to all the politics and social issues. It's just when I started wising up and growing up that I realized that this is a little
Have you
tiresome.
grown up and wised up? See very little evidence of that today.
Sick burn there.
That was harsh. I didn't mean that much. Let's move on, Dr. Mike. Here's what we talk about. There's a trick in Polish. How do we say it, Dr. Mike? The policeman trick. Na policjanta or something.
Na policjanta, na wnuka. There's like a bunch of ways
There are
where
some scams that unfortunately are reasonably effective when they're used against senior citizens, old people who are a little too trusting. when they get a phone call or a knock on the door, there are people who pretend to be police officers who tell these old people that one of their relatives is in trouble or something has come up and they have to cooperate with the policeman right now, and this always involves handing over their money. Well, last week, I mean, it's tempting to laugh at this, and I understand it's kind of funny, but it's also really sad at the same time. This poor woman in Nova Huta, I think 77 years old, if I remember correctly. She was the unfortunate victim of the scam, and the bottom line, she was convinced to throw out more than 10,000 zlotys in cash
out of the window.
Out of a window, as well as jewelry and other possessions that she valued altogether at more than 130,000 zlotys. Again, out the window to some horrible, disgusting criminal, who persuaded her to do this. Not long after she did so, of course, she realized something was amiss, and she called the real police, and unfortunately, she discovered the truth then. She's out the money. As far as we know, no one has been arrested yet. Dr. Mike, this is shockingly common.
It's shockingly common, especially when you consider the fact that there are so many public service announcements and talk about this for years now. On television, on radio, on the internet, people talking about it. But still, it happens where an elderly person is contacted, in the middle of the day, out of nowhere. It's like, help, this is your grandson, your son. I need money right now. I've been arrested for, a car accident. I need money for bail. I'll have a friend drive over there right now. Give him whatever you have. And, it's a phishing scam. So in the sense that these people call a bunch of old people, most people say no, but once in a while they'll hit somebody who agrees to it. And without thinking, they'll give them this money. The story you were talking about was an elderly woman living on her own, and somebody claiming to the police called her and said, they know you have money in the house and they plan to rob you. You should get all your valuables into one position, one place, one bag, and just give it to us outside the window so they don't rob you. And she did that, and then she figured out that no, actually she had just been robbed. And he had another elderly man about a week later, also here in Krakow, where he was called by somebody claiming to be his son, saying that he had just gotten into a car accident and injured a pregnant woman. You always have to make this sound as emotional as possible. And then, the police are there. He needs money for bail. He'll send a friend over to get that money. And he also ended up giving him 80,000 zlotys.
And we asked the obvious question, how do you not recognize your own son on the telephone? Well, these people, they're elderly. Maybe they're not, functioning properly.
Their marbles aren't all there, maybe.
Psychologically, and maybe they've already been kind of scouted out as a potential victim somehow. I
mean, it could be that, but it can also be that, it's the whole thing. If you ask a million people, eventually someone will say yes.
That's true.
Well, we may have mentioned this before on a previous show a long time ago, but there's this, the places where pickpockets particularly like to hang out is close to the signs in railway stations and bus stations that say, beware of pickpockets, because people walk past that sign, they see it, and immediately pat the pocket where their wallet is. So the pickpocket knows which pocket to go for.
It's similar along those lines, especially with... I forget what I was going to say.
Fail.
Are you still crying inside because of what I said, Mike? I'm sorry.
The Pearl Jam. There are so many songs that just really, really hit me right here. I'm sorry.
Pearl Jam.
Yeah, he was pointing to his
I just don't get it. The great album, and they've been coasting for 30 years on that.
Allergy versus... They have their 90s stuff. They had 5 years in a row of an album every 18 months. It was fantastic. After Yield, though, they just got boring.
We'll agree to disagree. Of course, I say this as a huge fan of Kiss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Been coasting since 1977.
You should not be ashamed of that.
No, but going back to
as long as you're self-aware.
Kiss is a great performance, but their songs are shite. Is there a single...
Hold your tongue, Josh.
Is there a single good Kiss song?
Oh, my God.
That's the joy. That's the joy.
I can't even.
Talking about the elderly people, this is what I was going to go to as well. Apparently... lots of these grifters and scammers, they go around looking for old telephone books because it turns out that only old people still have landlines that they've had for 30, 40 years.
Good point, yeah.
So you get a phone book with landlines in it from 20 years ago, and they just basically call one person after another. And these are often people that haven't talked to their family or relatives in months or years. So the fact that somebody calls them, is already something exciting. And screaming in their ear, something's happening, maybe
there's urgency. It's
exactly.
Emotional. And
it's also the very reasonable point, which most of us who are younger kind of tend to overlook, and that is, of course, that elderly people have only been elderly for about 15, 20 years or so, and before that they were presumably healthy, functional, middle-aged people who wouldn't, for a moment consider themselves at risk of being scammed. But you kind of tend not, particularly if you're on your own, to be cognizant of the fact that maybe your abilities are
Never happened to me, huh? Like that kind of thing.
Well, I'm beginning to feel it now. I often forget what I'm doing.
I'm just thinking off the top of my head there. It could be agreeability as well. I think maybe as you get older, you have to be more agreeable to people because you need more help. Because you need more help, right?
I've become much more disagreeable as I've got older.
All right, end of quote. Repeat the line, okay? Let's keep going.
Give it 20 years. Give it 20 years. And,
Salute the Marines.
I won't be here in 20 years.
You'll be throwing your recording kit out the window.
You know what? I think we're going to wrap up on that point. We've got a couple of other topics.
Before it descends into a fist fight.
Yeah, exactly. Right before Gabby kicks everybody's ass here. So that does it from swimming pools that are not really swimming pools.
That was really the only item we covered, wasn't it? Like mostly swimming pools with a little bit of
construction. The Guardians has come to Krakow.
You complaining?
Well, I don't know. We're giving our listeners, viewers, their money's worth. Oh, money's worth. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you didn't pay anything for this. So
yeah, that's true.
You're getting what you deserve.
KrakCast.pl is the site, of course.
How's that donate button? Look, is that covered in algae?
We don't even have a donate button anymore.
Oh, right.
Or if we do, it still goes to Dave. Maybe Dave's living fat off of our donations. I don't know.
Anyone heard from Dave?
Look into that one of these days. KrakCast.pl. Check out our website. Leave us a comment on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just FYI, because we know that you can't sleep unless you know this kind of thing. Our schedule going into August is going to be quite light. We're going to take some time off because, summertime.
Swimming.
That's how we're
living is easy.
We're going to go jump in some fountain in Nova
Fisher
Huta
jumping.
Exactly.
Cotton is high.
Exactly.
Or probably I'm going to be high in the
on behalf of Gabby, Josh, and Dr. Mike, this is John saying thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the KrakCast News.